pigeons for sale? That's the question for this morning. Happy Monday to you. This is the first video in our Holy Week series that we're doing. If you missed yesterday's service, which would have been Palm Sunday, number one, you can always check it out on our YouTube page, and I invite you to do that. But if you did miss it, let me kind of catch you up real quick. What we're doing this week is we're going through the last week of Jesus's life, and we're chronologically going through it day by day and doing a devotional that would have taken place on that day. And so today's Monday, and so we find ourselves right in the middle of the book of Mark, chapter 11, and this is what was going on Monday of that first Holy Week. So it says this in chapter 11, verse 15, "And they came to Jerusalem, and he entered the temple and began to drive out those who sold and those who bought in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the moneymakers and the seats of those who sold pigeons." Yeah, we're talking about pigeons this morning. "And he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. And he was teaching them and saying to them, 'Is it not written, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have made it a den of robbers.'" So Jesus rolls up to the temple and he does something that probably would disrupt things if Jesus showed up into the church today. Jesus gets so frustrated, so angry at what he sees, that he literally begins to throw tables and kick people out. And at first glance, you're like, man, why is he doing this? I thought he was the Prince of Peace. You can't be angry, right? And the reality is that anger's not the issue. Like it even says in the Bible, you can be angry, but sin not. And Jesus had righteous anger here. Because what was taking place in the temple is these people would come from all over the place and they would come to worship the Lord. And part of the worship experience or worship process would have been sacrificing something such as a pigeon. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was according to the customs of what would take place for those Jews and even the Gentiles that would have been present at that time. And the issue wasn't with the pigeons. It wasn't even with the sale of pigeons, because for many of them, they didn't have their own pigeon or their own lamb. They had to go buy one. The issue is that people were in the house of God, and the commerce was so great, and the chaos of all of the business taking place and the exchange rate and all of these things were taking place. And it was so abundant that the temple no longer was a place of worship, but rather it was a place of business transaction. And business transactions aren't wrong. They just simply shouldn't take the place of what's supposed to be happening in the house of God. And we see this take place even in our own life. Like you go into a worship service and you might see people that are dressed really nice, or you might see the music having a lot of emphasis in production and it's done really, really well. And nice clothing and great music is not an issue. The issue is when that becomes more important than actually worshiping God. And for these people in Mark chapter 11, they got it all wrong. They were more concerned with the transactions and turning a profit on things than they were actually doing what they were supposed to be doing. And so Jesus' response is he gets ticked off. He is so frustrated with what's happening. And what I love about this passage is it shows the problem of the temple, but it also shows the solution of the temple. Like we have plenty of things that we could be frustrated about in life. And some of those might be outside of the church. Some of those actually might be inside of the church. And regardless of what they are, here is what the temple or what the church is supposed to be. It is supposed to be a place of prayer, a house of prayer. And so as you're prepping yourself for Easter Sunday, and you're prepping yourself for what's going to take place this Holy Week, here would be my encouragement to you. Would you take some time today and some time throughout this week to get rid of all of the distractions? Not that any of those things are inherently bad, but if they're occupying space that the Lord should have in your life, and they're not allowing you to have the correct prayer time, those things are getting in the way of what God wants to do. I believe that through this week and leading up to Easter, the Lord is going to touch your life. I believe that this Easter is going to be a massive celebration of the risen King. And as we move toward that, our hearts need to be in the right spot. And the best way of doing that is to go to the Lord in prayer. And so take heed to the warning that Jesus has here where he says, my house shall be called a house of prayer. Today and throughout this week, would you seek the Lord? Maybe for you, it's putting a timer on your phone and saying, hey, for 5 minutes, I'm just gonna pray. I'm just gonna ask the Lord for things. I'm gonna submit things to him. I might even be still and just let him speak to me and carve out that 5-minute window. Or maybe it's 10, maybe it's 15. Go at a pace that you know you can sustain, but carve out time to meet with the Lord today and every single day this week. And as a little bonus item for you, because we're gonna get into it tomorrow morning, if you look just 2 verses earlier, Jesus curses a fig tree. And we're gonna find out exactly why he did that and what the result is tomorrow. But for today, would you seek the Lord in prayer?